Okay, this is a new series I'm doing where it's not a podcast, not anything fancy. It's just long form conversations with people who I think my audience wants to hear from. In this episode with Grace, Grace and I are talking about how to resolve workplace conflict and talking about our own personal disagreements that have come up in our business partnership. We are talking about how to actually make money outside of a traditional job structure, which she's really good at. And we're just talking about how to approach work without ego, which sounds fun. I'm sure everyone's dying to click on that, right? But it changes the whole way that everyone works with you, and it's probably one of the reasons we have been able to be as successful as we have been.
Amazing.
Is
Can't
that
wait for
good?
this conversation. Yeah, that was great.
Okay, so here's what this is, and here's what I want to talk to you. There's so much chatter in my TikTok comments. And
Uh-huh.
there's so many topics I want to talk with nuance and at length about that I think people really want to know about.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to do it's like not a podcast, it's not anything crazy. I just wanted to do some long form content on TikTok with experts that I think are really helpful. And so instead of just trying to like hash things out in the comments, I wanted to actually do something, that people could get value out of in just a little bit of a longer form. So that
Yeah,
is
I
really
love
yours.
it. Let's get into it. So
Okay,
fun.
cool. And there's a couple things I wanted to specifically chat with you about. One being you've been an expander for me in how people make money. Do
Mhm.
people know what expander means?
No,
Hold on.
expander is a term. Do you want me to explain it? So I used to work at this company called To Be Magnetic, and they coined the word expander, which basically means somebody who has or embodies the qualities that you want to become. So you see them and you're like, oh my gosh, if she can do it, so can I. And there's all different kinds of expanders. Like you might see a celebrity who's an expander because she's living a beautiful lifestyle or you aspire to be that way. But I think expanders are most valuable when you can find someone who's just a couple of steps ahead of you in something, and we're both expanders for each other in that way, because there's some things that you're further along than me on, some things I'm further along than you on. And then we can really learn from each other. And having somebody so close to you that's just a couple paces ahead really helps you see to believe that it's possible for you. And all of a sudden it unlocks something in your subconscious where you're like, oh my God, if she can do it, so can I. So it's been such a blessing to meet you and be like walking an entrepreneurial path together and a content creator path and a making money on our own path, and really be like, okay, I want to give up now. Wait, Grace is doing this. I got to keep on. So that's what expander means.
Oh, I love it, and I think like it has been such a blessing to have you. Oh my God, we sound so LA right now.
I know. Such a blessing. Thank you.
But by the way, when we work together, when we do cohorts, we call me New York Grace and her LA Grace.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's been such a blessing to have you as an expander in the ways that you are, which I don't know that we necessarily need to go into specifically, but there's so many things about you and how you live and how you approach work life that I didn't know before you. And being able to run alongside you as we are and watch you and be like, oh shit, that's how she does that. It's so cool.
Well, I feel the same about you. And I have been on my content creator journey. And when I met Grace, actually through one of my clients, and we worked together in a consulting capacity, she was already well on her way. She'd been doing the TikTok, she'd been building an audience, she'd had some videos go viral, she'd like really hit her stride. And then I think I met you when you had like 25,000 followers. And like 3 months later, you had like 90,000, which was incredible. And I had just started creating some videos to promote my thinking, my mindset, my methodology, and relate back to an e-course I created about freelancing and how to make income basically just as an independent agent. Like the word freelance kind of sounds like you're a gig economy person, but making freelance income or making income just as a solo individual is like a totally viable path to making money. So I had started making videos, and then I met Grace, and then I was like, hey, Grace, like, look at this. And she was like, oh my God, like, you need to lean all the way in. So I'm really grateful for your expansion in that way too.
Oh, it was so interesting. I really grew up in my parents are first generation, and so we really had like sort of puritanical, like a lot of immigrants, funnily enough, come in with this puritanical mindset to work.
Mhm.
Just like you just have to grit. You just have to grit and work really hard and work harder than anyone else, and that's how you rise in life. And so that's how my parents approached work, which is just like really hard work. And that's how
Mm-hmm.
their parents approach really hard work. And it's not it's not about not working hard, but what you showed me was that I think as an entrepreneur, and especially doing the type of work we both do, which is like there's a lot of creative, there's a lot of strategic, there's not a lot of necessarily execution,
Mm-hmm.
but your brain has to be primed a really specific way to do this work well.
Totally.
And it's the work everyone wants to do, but I think many people are ill prepared to do it. They just like don't want to do the execution stuff, but you have to do the execution stuff for 15 years before you get to this point. Anyway, what you taught me was um, a traditional work life is not the only way to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And posing yourself as a traditional person who's like a safe, reliable hire is not the only way to make money, and it might be like the way to make the least money possible. You
Totally.
really position yourself as valuable across a bunch of different spectrums, and that's what people hire you for, and it's so cool to see because you
Yeah.
don't I just feel like you don't have the hangups the rest of us have around like I mean, this is a really good example for everyone of like Convo Grace and I have where so I hit like a Wednesday and I'm like, I just feel like I didn't do anything useful today. I didn't move anything forward. And for me, it's important that I move things forward every day. And she'll be like, well, you need this or you need this or like think about it this way. And then I'll release that control hold a little bit. And then, a new client drops in or something. Like you just have this way of moving the energy away from rigid control.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I mean, I started my freelance career when I was like 19 on accident just because I was obsessed with graphic design. Um, it was like the age of the blogs. And I remember I had this job working at the front desk at a gym in college, and I got paid like $7 an hour to like wave at people. And I would just like spend the time on my computer reading all of these blogs. And I was like, maybe I could make one. And so I like started trying to figure it out. And then I signed up for a graphic design class. And then once I knew how to do graphic design, I just sort of like offered to do it for people. And then people offered to pay me. So, like, that muscle of like, I have a service that somebody will pay for developed really early for me. And then I liked making money. I was like, okay, like I can make a blog post for this woman and I'll charge her $25. And then my friend's mom needs help and she has a Facebook page and I'll do this. So I just very early like uncoupled the idea of making money and having a job. So I always felt like, oh, I can make money on my own. And I continued demonstrating that. Even though I had that understanding, I still got a job right after college. Like, I wasn't like, oh, I should just have a freelance career. I worked at an agency and then I worked at a startup. And I had this unlock moment when I worked at the startup when I realized like I was doing like 15 different jobs. I was like so multi hyphenate from like doing my own freelance work, from working at a small agency and doing like a lot of different roles, that I realized I could be making a lot more money doing it for myself. And then I also had this moment of realizing like, oh, I've already demonstrated I know how to make money on my own. I should just quit and do this. Um, and so at that point, I quit my job. I think I was like 23 or 24. And I was making like 60K at the time. My mom was like, don't do it. It's a great salary. Like, you have benefits, whatever. And I was just like, shut up. Like, I know I can do this. And so I quit my job. And the first year of freelancing, I made $120,000. And it was like, I didn't even really expect it because tax season came up and it was like the last day of the year. And I was like, oh shit, like I need to get in touch with an accountant. You know, it was like under the gun. So people now ask me questions like, what should I do about taxes and accounting and logging? Like, I wasn't even thinking about that. I didn't really think like, oh, I'm starting a business. I just started doing jobs for people and then just like being like, how about this amount of money? How about that amount of money? And then like slowly started to form an opinion around like how much my services would cost and how much people would pay. And then slowly kind of like created this like learned by experience expertise around how to figure out what your skill sets are, where you can provide value for a company, how you can offer them to somebody as an independent contractor, all the things that go into that, like contracts and scopes of work and invoicing and, client management, emails, all that kind of stuff. And over time, all of a sudden I became an expert in this. And it wasn't until a friend of mine mirrored it back to me, because I had coached her out of her full-time job into freelance, and she had been making like 150K at an agency, started making 30 grand a month, like for a whole entire year. Like, oh my God. She was like, you have to put this into a course. So that's sort of when my How to Go Freelance was born. That led me into the content. But yeah, I never had that blocker that like I have to have a job to make money. I just thought like I have to have something to offer to make money, right? Like I have to be able to provide value for a business to make money. And I think that's a big hang up for people that are even looking for jobs, because they go to apply for a job and they're like, I need something. The job represents security. It represents something to do. It represents potential status, identity, instead of thinking like, I have these skill sets, where can I contribute, provide value, grow what I have to give, what I want to do, all of that kind of stuff.
It's so interesting because not only did you decouple the idea of I need to have a job to make money, but you sort of coupled early the idea of I have a lever that I can pull on to make money, and the distance that lever has to travel is completely dependent on me and what I can offer people.
Totally. And what I got onto really quickly is this idea that I could have many clients on retainers. So this idea that like you can buy a certain amount of my hours per month and I'll do a certain service for you. And my expertise is all around like marketing and creative services, from like social media marketing, email marketing, websites, graphic design, copywriting. Like I'm just really fluent and pretty good at all those things. And so I would have like 7 clients like on $1,000 retainer, $2,000 retainer, $5,000 retainer, like whatever. And I'd be like, I'll make you 2 emails a month. I'll redo your website. I'll do your influencer marketing strategy. And I just like totally said yes. And I just like over time stacked enough retainers that I was like, oh my God, I'm making $10,000 a month. And I'm doing the same amount of tasks I would do at a full-time job on like a capped lower salary, but like it's unlimited if I do it in this way. And also I'm a really fast worker. Like things that take somebody else a week literally take me
Really
3 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm not exaggerating about it. And so many people are like this, where like, if they didn't have to commit to a 40-hour week or think like, oh, I have to sit 8 hours at a desk to get paid, they'd actually be so much more efficient and effective and like excellent, because they just like blast it out in like an hour or two, as opposed to like dragging their feet and having a snack and having a conversation and getting weighed down and X, Y, and Z and procrastinating. So like the way my energy works and the way my output works just like also wasn't compatible with the expectations of having a 9 to 5. And on top of that, I really don't like being managed. I would rather be the one to be like, here's what I think we should do. And I had that confidence like really early on in my career too.
Yeah, and people find that confidence in a 23-year-old really annoying.
Really annoying. Oh my God. I would be like in a like C-suite meetings when I was 23 being like, I think we should do this and blah, blah, blah. And I don't understand the strategy because I don't think it will resonate here. And I don't even think people knew I was 23 until like one day someone found out and they were like, like, we're not giving her more money.
No thanks.
I know.
Meanwhile, right, if you were on a team I was working on, I would be like, can you
You'd be like, can you shut up? Like, you can't even hear a 23-year-old that's saying that,
Yeah.
I was right.
You were right. Well, it's interesting. I think to the point about working faster, you do work exceptionally fast. So that's just a piece of value that you've created. And I also agree that I think having now been in this world of like solo business, so own company, working with people like you, the minute I'm working with a client who's really corporate and I have to be like in their system a little bit, I want to scream my head off.
I know.
It takes 2 weeks to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I showed you a thing on my website, I don't know, and within an hour it was done.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the speed is value, right? People will pay more for speed. And there are so many heavy corporate systems that exist just because People want to maintain like hierarchical structures, approvals. People have egos. Like nobody necessarily indexes too much on people's like superpowers or genius or
Yeah.
speed or efficacy. It's very much like, you're the copywriter. In my mind, this is what a copywriter is. So this is what you must be, as opposed to understanding, like you teach, the soft skills of the people around you that you're working with. So you might get to working with me and be like, oh, Grace is really fast. So like, let's put her on that project. And like actually sending her through a whole, heavy process just lags out the time it takes to execute on this. So it just depends like how effective people want to be. And for me, working at startups and also consulting for startups is much better fit for me, because I like a run and gun, like we got to launch this and get it out the door thing. And I feel like really dragged down by like, even if I could have a cushy corporate consulting thing and it would take us
Well,
eight.
what would be cushier than you have right now? Like, what would be cushier than the retainers you have?
I think it's like, by cushy, I just mean slow, where it's just like you're hardly doing anything because they're
Yeah.
taking a really long time on processes and approvals, but you're getting paid anyways. And I
Yeah, yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
that's what some people get comfortable in, but like I cannot even stand it. Like I would pass on something that was like more of a lazy river, but you're getting paid. And I would rather move fast, you know?
And yes, 1000%. So do you so I've been playing with this idea for I was gonna say just young people, but it's kind of like anyone in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a critical part of succeeding in a corporate life, which I believe a corporate life is right for many, 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 many.
Totally.
And there's also seasons of your life where it's right. But I think to get the most you can get out of it, one of the things you need to do is understand your skill set in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't do themselves the favor of understanding what their skills in the market are until they leave.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point you're under a time gun. You've left your corporate job, you've left the safety, you've left the security, you've left the benefits, and now you need to figure out a way to make this work really quickly. When I just see a world where people take this view on it, and then
Mm-hmm.
they either have the opportunity to build experience, build network, and go off on their own,
Mm-hmm.
or they just have this completely different idea of how they add value, which enables them to negotiate better, get paid better, get more visibility.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Totally.
think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like people are doing roles, but they don't realize that they're developing skill sets at the same time.
Yeah,
And what I knew about me, and I know the functions of marketing departments and creative departments very intimately because I've done all of those jobs. And those are pretty easy skills to freelance with. But people who have jobs that are more like ops or accounting or even being a lawyer, anything that's around like project management or just like being involved with getting a process done, all of those things can also be done in a freelance capacity, whether you're like a freelance operations manager, freelance project management, like a fractional COO, freelance
totally.
accounting, bookkeeping, lawyer, like those things you can do without working for a company and just go direct to client. But I think it's one, realizing that that's even a possibility, first of all, that you don't have to rely on a company to pay you. And then two, kind of deducing down, like even making a list of like your hard skills and your soft skills, right? Your hard skills being like the deliverables that you can provide to a client, like the things that you know that you can get done for somebody. Soft skills being what Grace teaches on, your interpersonal skills, your sales skills, the things that you will bring to the table to showcase how amazing your work is and move it through an organization. So I think self-awareness is the first piece, and even becoming somebody who might see doing freelance work as an option.
And even if, and our friend Lindsay teaches self-awareness, so you can click over to her.
Yeah.
Even if freelance is not going to be an option for you, I think it only benefits people, especially like the way that I see AI affecting our workforce is
Mm-hmm.
more so that people and their unique skill sets become much more valuable than a bunch of like boxes of like job description, job description, roll. I think it's like, oh, Grace is in our Oregon. We know she can do this really well. So she's going to keep getting pulled into these, this, the emergency projects the C-suite has. And then all of a sudden
Mm.
you have this new title, you have this new role, you have this new thing in the org. Like, I just think that's how it's going to work. I don't think, let me stop. I think that's how it's going to work.
Well, okay, as you're talking, I was thinking AI might be able to do something like copywriting, right? But a lot of people's biggest problem is that they don't know how to do something generally. Like there's a big process that they don't understand how to do. They know they need to launch a website, but they don't understand how that process works. They've never done it before. They'd like to hire somebody who, one, knows how to do it, can explain it to them, who they can trust, two, can hire the right resources to do it, three, can execute on all of it or portions of it. So first of all, I think like going into any situation as a problem solver is the thing that AI can't really be replaced with, right?
Yeah.
Like, and even if somebody can ask ChatGPT, how does one build a website? A lot of people don't understand what the steps mean, don't want to move forward and do it themselves. They would rather sub it out to somebody else.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is like, even if you could just be you, like an octopus, and use like 8 AIs all at once, like people don't want to do that, like they're too lazy and they would rather hire somebody else to be like, I'll build the website for you. I'll educate you on the process. And guess what? Maybe I'll use AI to write the product captions, but there's still room to like build out teams of people that other people want to work with. And I don't think that's ever going to be replaced. Like we don't want to just be working in silos with an AI, right? Like we actually want to cultivate community and get smarter at work and like do that by interacting with our peers. And so when I work with any new client, large or small, like whether it's a small business or random summer camp, my friend's mom from church, like, startup, personality who wants to create content, they all have the same problem is they don't know how to do something and I know how to do that thing. And I both educate them and execute on it. So I would think about like how the skill sets that you've garnered at work, how the processes that you've learned at work, lend towards educating somebody or a business on how to do something better.
Here's where I think people might not be ready for that, which is really interesting because you taught me this. So
Yeah.
I came from, again, a more traditional background where I started to get around November of 2024, I started to get busy, very busy, more than I ever had, more money coming in than I had ever had yet. And I thought, what's the first thing I thought? I need to hire. I need
Right.
to hire people. And I went and I hired 2 people. And I was really struggling with it come the turn of the year, come like January. And I remember talking to you about it and being like, it's really hard for these XXX reasons. And you were like, well, why did you hire them? You could do these things yourself. You just need this kind of system. Like you can do these things yourself. And I was so reluctant to let go of that because
Mm-hmm.
to me it was a prestige thing that I have this business, I'm growing it, and because now I have more than enough work to do, I can have help. And you were like, why would why if you could just do it, why would you give someone else the money and the time, like if you can just do it? So it was such an eye-opening thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
um I do have an assistant who I love, Keisha, who's wonderful, who works with me, but it's yeah, I think it's a mindset a lot of people can't get out of, and so to that end, they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to learn all the things. They just
Right.
wanna hire other people, and so the people who hear this and take this advice and go, "Oh, I'm gonna be someone who educates other people and who educates businesses and who can, like, execute, educate, and go forward,"
Mm-hmm.
will be the ones making money.
Totally. The other thing is when I work with clients who need resources other than me to do projects, I just make my clients pay my other resources directly. So, like, I've worked with clients where I have them hire out my ads manager, my copywriter, my graphic designer, my assistant, like, and they all get paid then from my client. So I basically like have um, cultivated relationships with other freelancers and I bring them into the projects that I'm working on, but in a way where it does not cut into my salary, but the things I need to get done still get done by the resources I want them to get done with. So there's many different ways that you could slice it, but the way you're talking about it's like that's only eating out of the money that you get to take home, right? And until you hit a certain amount of revenue, the question is just like, would I rather quickly do this work and take home more money? Or do I not want to have to think about this work, which, is a toss up because a lot of times people don't follow through, or they can't actually do what you need them to do, or you're not happy with their results or whatever. I ran into this when I tried to sub out like some graphic design project. I have a great graphic designer I work with now, but I had this woman build it all out. I was feeling so good about delegating, and I handed the client like 2 pieces of graphic design work, the woman's and some of mine. And the client only liked my work and was like, the rest needs to be redone. And I was like, okay, so I wasted money on this. Now I have to redo it. And like, it's made me look bad because it looks like my quality of work isn't as good. So not to say that delegating isn't important, because it is important when you get to a certain scale. And when it's something you really don't know what to do, where you need a separate expertise for. But if it's something just like, setting up a proposal or a scope of work, or, sending an invoice or whatever, I think it's a good practice to learn those new skills. And like, you can time box and be like, okay, for 1 hour every Monday, like I'm going to truck through these things. Or like a lot of times you and I will like do the body double co-work, and we'll be like, okay, I need to do this suck thing. You need to do this suck thing. And there's also so much self-esteem and self-reliance and like happiness. After you do it, you're like, hell yeah, I got that thing done. It like feels good to do hard things. So I'm not anti-delegating, but I would rather just like get in the groove, knock things out, get better at things, and then take home all the money on myself, and then have clients pay other people on top of paying me.
The body doubling has been kind of a game changer for us the last couple months.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
It's really good. And I also think what I want to point out in like the non-grossest way possible is that you could be watching this or listening and hear Grace and be like, okay, cool for you. Like LA freelance girl. Grace, I'm not going to say anything specific, but Grace makes the same amount as like a lot of the clients I work with who are high level execs. And when I say I'm working with an exec, that's a manager of managers at huge companies. So people whose like names and logos would be really recognizable to you, or their titles and logos would be really recognizable. You're very, very like modest and humble about that. But I think the point for me was, I remember when you were transparent about money from the get-go. And that is all my friends this season in my life are transparent about money, which is so cool. I was like, oh, wait, I thought if you were making this kind of money, life was going to look a certain way, and you were going to act a certain way, and you were going to be above certain things. And that's just not how you operate at all.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I mean, I have always optimized my life for freedom, which meant like I wasn't chasing status. Like I wasn't like, let me go to Google or Facebook and get a job there so I can have something on my resume. I was like, how do I like circumvent the entire game? And to me, it was like more boss to be like, I opt out of the game. And like, I also did this in college, right? Like I like made a special major. I transferred out to another school and got a special degree and made mishmash all the credits together. Like I was never interested in like participating in any systems. And I don't know, maybe that says something about my inherent sense of self-worth and what I feel like I have to offer, where I was just like, let me figure out this on my own, as opposed to having some title attached to who I am. But over time, in my pursuit of freedom, really, because I don't want to be managed, don't want to do a 9 to 5, don't want to be boxed in. I really don't like titles. Like when someone tried to be like, this was your title, I would get like triggered and be like, I'm so many other things. How can you call me that? Like maybe I want to do that thing. Like it was almost like I would have such an identity crisis when somebody would try and say I was any one thing, that I was just like, I will be nothing.
Yeah.
And I will be everything at the same time. So that's what led me to doing this, is me trying to buck the system, So then I just like came up with my own strategy. Like I said, can I stack retainers? Can I experiment with my rates? Can I learn a different skill and offer it as a service? Like I would get into an interesting startup or company and work with the executives there, and I would like listen to how they spoke, and I would start speaking like that. I just sort of like educated myself as I tried to circumvent playing the game. And now I could probably get a consulting job at a big name company, and I would be on par with the execs there, and I would know actually so much more about so many different industries, because I have now worked with like hundreds of clients in lots of different industries, and I've dealt with like tons of different skill sets. But it's sort of like life has been my education,
Yeah.
which has made me good at this, as opposed to being like, Google will be my education, you know?
I don't know that. I mean, I didn't, the innate sort of approach that you have, the innate, I feel like I'm triggered by you calling it self-worth, not in like a terribly bad way, but I'm kind of like, oh, does that mean I didn't have the self-worth? But
No,
I
no.
did not have the skill sets that you
Mhm,
had. I did not have I was not uncoupling job from money, and I was
mhm,
certainly not coupling myself and my energy with being able to like have a lever to pull to make money.
totally.
Um,
It's also just like out of the box thinking. Like a
yeah,
lot of people were just like, this is what you do. You get a job. And like they were good students, they were intelligent, they could get a good job. Like you played the game correctly, you know? Um, I think also like I wasn't a good student. Like I was so anti-establishment vibes. Like I wasn't even interested in trying to get an A so I could put it on my resume so I could get into a college so I could get a job. Like that
that
was
wasn't
not
me
my
either. And
thing.
I struggled at every stage. I just didn't envision for myself a way out of it.
Right,
Does that make
right.
sense? Like I struggled at every stage. I was not a good student. I only liked psychology. I
Yeah.
only remember my psychology courses.
Uh-huh.
Um, I acted on the side, but I didn't make any money doing that.
Yeah.
So I didn't attach it to an ability to make money. I didn't bartend or wait tables, which was a mistake. I
I
mean,
didn't I didn't either, yeah. Uh-huh.
um, because I think I did that last year,
Mm,
and you or 2 years ago, you very firmly capture your ability to like pull the lever that makes money. Like you can do it night minute by minute, night by night. You just like up the amount of money you're making. Um, but yeah, I just didn't really see a way out of that system, which is why I love
mhm.
your piece and how to go freelance so much because I just think it speaks to more than freelance. Amazing if people want to freelance, but I think it speaks to a mindset that so serves
Yeah.
the exact same type of people I'm trying to serve who whatever they want to do in their life, they want more. They want to utilize themselves more. They want to utilize their brains, their skills more.
Mhm.
And this is an approach that I think would help anyone.
Totally. I think the word freelance is often a blocker for people because like you and I are doing similar careers. I wouldn't call myself like a freelancer, right? I'd call myself a consultant or strategist or a creative or whatever. Um,
Meanwhile, you said the word consultant to me the other day, and I was like,
you're like, ew.
yeah,
But I think what I teach and what I want people to start thinking about is how to turn your skills into services and how to identify people and businesses that could use your skills or services, and then having the balls to reach out and talk to them and have a conversation. I was talking about like my networking skills with one of my clients, and I think the reason that like networking works for me is because I just like am a walking brainstorm. Like I meet somebody and I'm already like playing ping pong with them. I'm like, oh, you do this type of business? Like, are you guys doing this? Like, that's so interesting. I see another company that does that in your industry. Like, I'm
yeah,
interested. I have your competitor's product. Like, I do X, Y, and Z. And then I demonstrate like my capability in my conversations with people, and afterwards they're basically like, can we work together, just because of that interaction,
yeah.
versus keeping myself separate from the person and being like, oh yeah, I work at this company, or I'm just a head of X, you know, like I'm really interested in business creativity and strategy, and like I love the collaboration there. And so I think one thing that, you know, will make anybody stronger at getting jobs, getting clients, is like, you know, making sure you're bringing and giving something to the conversations you're participating in, because then you don't even have to ask for opportunities. People just spot you as somebody who could fill a hole that they have.
Well, I think that's another thing you do very well, which segues into what I want to talk about, but I'm going to take like the long segue route. So
Perfect.
something I think that you do really well with networking, because now we've like introduced each other to other people and we've been working on stuff cross with
Mm-hmm.
other people. Um, you're very curious and you don't try and prove yourself to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates such a less pressured environment.
Totally.
It's
Yeah,
hard to not do that.
I know the proving yourself thing is interesting. And I think again, that's a self-awareness piece where I remember after college, I was freelancing. I had like gotten bad grades in college. I wasn't a straight A student, but I was like already killing it, right? Like I was already making six figures. Like I was 24, whatever. And I would see like the kids in college who like got straight A's and were on the varsity team, and their mom was like, "Oh, Susie can't even get a job." And my mom was like, "Well, my daughter's doing X, Y, and Z." And so for a while I had like this chip on my shoulder where I wanted to like prove that I wasn't just like the pretty funny girl that got bad grades, you
Yeah.
know? Like whenever I would talk to somebody from high school or college, I would really overcompensate and be like, I do this and blah, blah, blah. And now I'm explaining to you what design thinking and strategy is. And let me tell you about my client. And nobody even asked, you
And
know?
no one cares.
Like I was just trying to prove myself. And at some point, I think I was like 26, I was like, oh, like I there's a disconnect between like my skills and my self-worth, and I'm like trying to prove to people to validate to me that I'm good at what I'm doing by like overcomping with the explanation. And so I just really started watching that, and I stopped, and instead I like started listening more, and like had this awareness around like, where am I trying to take up all the oxygen in the room? Where am I using other people to validate me? And like I don't do that at all anymore, but it took that moment of being like, oh my God, like I'm just trying to prove to everybody else that I am not the girl in high school anymore. I can sit back and like rest in my inherent value and know where to interject it when like it's actually necessary.
You do that very well. You
Thank
do that. And us having like worked together, I'm going to cite it. I think this happened to us more than once, but it was like one of the first calls. So we're working on a project together where we're equally leading the thing.
you. Mm-hmm.
And we're sort of bringing like yin and yang to it, but like there's quite a bit of overlap. And that first call, I remember feeling self conscious that I was like, am I bringing anything to this table that like, couldn't Grace just do it? And I think I said that to you after, and you were like thinking something similarly.
Uh-huh.
Um, but you would never know. Like, because if I don't know how well I did on that call in terms of like letting that show, but 3 years ago, what I would have been doing was like shoving my opinions and thoughts down someone's throat to try and show them how like, and like talking over you probably like to try not to be competitive necessarily, but just to like really show my value.
Yeah, totally. I think there's a part of me that used to be that way too. But also, I think there's maturity in being like, you know what? You probably could facilitate all on your own, and I could probably facilitate all on my own, but it's way more fun to do it together. And like in that, we're creating more community, we're learning how to like create a new energy together, we're both getting smarter and learning from each other. And I think like you can start having fun when you can check your ego, and until then you're just like trying to go it alone. And I know there's like so many times like different people have tried to start businesses with me, or I've started projects with other people, and then I take on all the workload, and then I get all mad because I could do it myself. And why are you even getting paid? And like that was sort of my narrative for a long time. And I think like it takes a lot to vet valuable collaborators and know like, oh, I can learn from them and they bring something to the table that I don't already have. And it's fun and it's equitable. And I feel like, you know, we have mutual respect for each other. That's super rare and something you have to like cultivate over time, be really wise towards, nurture the relationships. Like we really nurtured our friendship and did a lot of co-working before we even started that. But when you can find somebody who is worth collaborating with, it's worth letting go of a little bit of your ego to be like, what co-collaborative energy could we create together that's more valuable to other people, that's more fun, engaging, that brings other people into the conversation. And I think that's what we did. We just said like, yeah, I could do this alone, but I would rather do it with her. And like, that's the magic in it.
I love the way you just said that. Even though if it's a conversation we've had, it just was like nice to hear it that way.
Yeah.
I think that takes me into the next piece, the last piece I want to talk to you about, which is workplace conflict. And to your point about checking the ego, this is another expander for me. I loved working in teams prior. Like I loved working in teams. Now that in hindsight, was I like the most effective? I was an effective human. Was I the most effective team member? Always probably not. Um, because I definitely had ego, but you have taught me so much. Well, hold on, let me start back up. So, loved being in a team, whatever. Now that I've been working on my own for 3.5 years, and like my blood, sweat, and tears, what I have built here, and service businesses are so hard because it's so hard for the shit that doesn't matter, for the way people see it, right? It's not a product. Like Poppy's all over the news today. Poppy was a 5-year build of this product. Now it's worth $2 billion. Great, 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 great. Okay. I have grown so much in the last 3.5 years. Like I have built really cool things, like really tangible, really interesting. I had an ego. And every time I tried to work with someone in the last year, it was a similar thing. It was in the last, 2 years. It was like either I picked up and did everything and then I was like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Or I would just meet people and be like, not worth my time. Like not worth my time, not worth my time. And so our first like moments of tension, I was not gracious. I was pissed about something, and the thing you immediately did was like call me. Like I was pissed about something that actually was not material to anything in hindsight. You immediately called me, and even though you called me, which is such a like not defenseless. It's such a like I'm not coming to you on offense. Like I'm coming to you to collaborate gesture. I was still kind of like like being kind of like pissy with you, and you just were like, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize it. It didn't come out the way I thought it did or whatever, and it's okay. Like it won't. It's okay. And also I think it's okay, and it taught me a lot. That moment. You're
Yeah.
really good at it.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. And that was a really special and important moment. And I think when you can overcome conflict with somebody, first of all, it's amazing because what it indicates to both of you is that you are worth overcoming this conflict for.
Yeah.
And there's so many relationships where you could just be like, well, you know what? This woman has been annoying me anyways. Goodbye. This is the final straw. But overcoming conflict and deciding to deal with it is really an act of care, and being able to like let go of your ego or like stringent point of view or whatever, even just to be like, you know what, they didn't mean to do this and it's not really material and it's fine and I can move on. And for the other person to be like, oh gosh, like instead of feeling like I'm in trouble and everyone hates me and like now I'm all small and insecure and will I ever be able to be normal again, which happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
You can both stand up as adults and be like, here's my point of view. I didn't have any malicious intent. I also don't know how things are going to land with you yet because we haven't done conflict together, right? Like you don't know how somebody gets activated until they're activated. So it's actually really good to activate each other and be like, oh, okay, like these are the trigger points for you. So I can make sure that I avoid them. Because for some people, like some collaborators that I work with, they might say, hey, like, can you not do this? And then I'm like, yeah, I won't do that. And then last minute, I'm like, wait, but I think actually that needs to be done. And then I'll do it. And they'll be like, whatever, I don't care. Right. And like the thing that you asked me not to do that I did anyways, like I was thinking about in a different way. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, since I'm putting this frame of thinking on it, I think it's okay for me to do this because what she didn't want me to do, I'm not doing, even though it was like ultimately the same thing, but we were thinking about it in different ways. And then I just thought like, it's no big deal. Once she hears my thought process, of course, like we would do that. So you just learn so much about communication and that like nobody's trying to undercut anybody. And like, certainly that does happen, but like when you're in a healthy dynamic with somebody, it is worth dealing with the conflict and like just laying it out and explaining why you thought through things. Cause most of the time nobody had malicious intent.
Well, you just have I think it's worth, I think this is when people talk about like why being in romantic relationships is really growing as a person, right? Like it's worth having that conflict and learning through it, because then about 6 weeks later, we got into a situation where I did the thing. You asked me not to do something and I heard it and I didn't mishear it. It wasn't that situation. I did it anyway.
Yeah.
And you again, so like having had the conflict with you already, I was kind of like in a tizzy about something, and it was just one of those, like, you know what? Don't be doing stuff at 10 PM at night. Like, don't be, like, angry, don't be doing
Sleep
work
on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, don't do that shit. We all learn that sometimes. So, I kinda, like, clicked out of it and was like, "Holy fuck. This is the thing Grace asked me not to do, and I just did it, and now I just, like, made her life hard." And so I immediately went to you with, like, "I am so sorry." In a way where had we not had the conflict, I might have been more defensive with you and been like, "It was actually my right to do this." Like, I
Right,
was
right.
I was, like, within my rights to do this
Uh-huh.
because we'd had that conflict, and then the way that you accepted that and just, like, moved us through it was so gracious that I will have by the time we next have a conflict, I will have learned so much from that.
Mhm.
So, I just, like,
Yeah.
I don't we've seen me activated multiple times, like, I don't know that we've yet activated you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That was also a really cool moment. And I think the other thing that I learned on my side is like when somebody crosses you and like does something you didn't ask them to do and then it puts you in a pickle and for some reason the person just had to do it. Like I could see for some reason Grace just had to do this. And I can laugh about it, like this seems ridiculous, but she was overtaken with some spirit and she had to do it. And like I could see that like also she loves me and she wasn't trying to do anything, to hurt my feelings or whatever. But then like I had to be like, okay, like how do I also speak up and communicate around like how, you know, I asked you not to do this and because you've done it, now I'm in this pickle. And let me just explain to you the pickle that I'm in. So that you can understand why I asked you not to do it in the first place. And so we both really learned from that situation, but it took the two sides of being like, okay, like we both give each other the grace, for lack of a better word, of being like, you know, we will assume good intent, right? And if you can assume good intent, then even if somebody makes a mistake, you can give them that grace and then you can decide how to deal with it.
It really has been one of the more effective lessons of my year, and I just, like, could not be more grateful for it. And I think also because of that, assuming good intent, although that's a hard one for me, not the assumption, but just, like, the way people talk about that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was so willing. I was like, "Okay, pride aside, now that that spirit has left me," whatever that was.
You were like, why did I even do this?
Why
Like,
did I do like, pride aside, I'm gonna do whatever it takes on my end to, like, make sure that you're okay.
mm-hmm,
Even if I have to, like, lay down under this tire,
mm-hmm,
to do so.
yeah,
Um, so, yeah, so that was just so interesting, and I think the world would be a better place if people learned from conflicts like this and
mm-hmm,
were able to get to a better place, like, but I do think it is there's so much trust here because you are so worth figuring shit out for.
yeah, 100%. And so are
Yeah.
you. Um, yeah, it's so fun. And I hate conflict, like hate it. Like, and I was like always getting in trouble growing up, or people were mad at me, or I did something wrong, and like it was like my least favorite thing, like fallouts with people and explaining why you did something. Like nothing gives me more anxiety than knowing that I have to deal with something like that. But not anymore, actually. Like when I had to deal with those things with you, like I genuinely did not feel emotionally triggered. And so I think that's an interesting thing to watch in your own self development. Like
Yeah.
when you're coming from a triggered emotional place, like better to take a pause, be with your emotions, be like, okay, can I uncouple this emotion from the trigger and be like, okay, wow, anger is here. Anger is a part of me. Let me just sit with anger, love the anger, move through anger. And instead of like being like, I'm angry because of this and because of that, and it's you, and I'm blaming you, and you made my life harder, right? You just sit with the anger. It's come up and it's yours. And then once the anger's washed through you, then you can look at the situation with clear eyes and be like, okay, now what would I like to do with the situation? Right? Because coming at it from an emotional standpoint, whether this is at your corporate job, with your client, with your friends, with your partner, like it's just not going to get you anywhere. Or maybe you end up like duking it out and getting upset and feeling your feelings and blah, blah, blah. And then you both come down and you're like, whoa, like I didn't actually feel that way, or I don't know why I reacted that way. So I think that practice of uncoupling your emotions from the trigger is like a really helpful one when it comes to dealing with conflict.
And I think that thing that you said is very true. You don't um I feel like anyone listening to this podcast is going to be like, great. New York Grace is obsessed with that. You don't, yeah, she's like a cult leader and I'm following it. No, you don't put your emotions on anyone else.
Yeah.
So that's something we don't do in our partnership now, is like, if I'm mad about something, I don't put that on you or attach it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really healthy.
Yeah, it's so healthy. It's
It's
such a
really
cool thing.
good.
I remember one time you were in a mood and we, for some reason, like couldn't catch each other on the phone. And you were like, this is better. Like, cause I need to deal with and sit with my stuff. And if we could all have that practice with each other of being like, all of my feelings are mine. And like, they don't have to do with the outside world. Like the outside world is just my mirror for bringing up things that are just a part of me. Like I live by that and like think it's absolute truth. Like for lack of a better word, like I don't feel like a victim to my circumstances. I feel like my circumstances are an opportunity for me to get to know myself better and then for me to have choice from there. And that's something that a lot of people are learning to do right now, and it's really beautiful. And I think that's how you really have healthy relationships, and that means starting with you.
And I think I love what you said about not being a victim to my circumstances. My circumstances are an opportunity to sort of understand myself better and then make choices from there. I'm eager for more people to continue there. I'm still on that journey. Like I think I don't feel a victim of my circumstances whatsoever, but I can get bogged down in like the mind pieces. I think the other thing that's interesting for us in our relationship, which by the way was friendship first, and
And now it's romantic.
now now it's a marriage. When we met, we were like, we're both in our 30s, and we were like, we met through work, and we were like, there's so many friends where people just like have these like really intense friendships really fast, whatever, and like neither of us do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't even like the track we were on. And then we just like slowly grew this friendship, and then slowly grew. Now it really is like a partnership where we do stuff together, and we will probably do stuff together for a very long time, just because we've been so intentional about how we have been in this the whole way. And there was a moment, speaking of romantic relationships, where it was right in the beginning. It was really hard. You'll remember this conversation. It was with a friend of ours who's
Mm-hmm.
also kind of an evolved soul.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, but it was a conversation where I was just bringing a lot of ego into the conversation. God, I sound fucking terrible in this one.
No, no.
I was bringing a lot of ego into the conversation because I was the expert in the
Mhm.
room on the thing that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And I was frustrated that no one was on the same page as me.
Mhm.
For what it's worth, it was something I hadn't learned to articulate well. I had put a lot of effort in one direction into something we were doing, and I was really being a mule about it. And it didn't need to be the thing that it was.
Mhm.
Newsflash, it often doesn't. But I was just like in such a bad mood about it. And I think we ended up talking that night, and I was just like, it's too hard. Why do this? It's too hard. I don't want to risk our friendship. I don't want to risk our friendship with this other person. Like, why are we even doing this? Do you remember what you said?
No, I don't, but it
You,
was good. What did I say? I don't
you
remember.
all remember? You were like, oh, because we were also like at in that moment, what you did was also like stand up, and because I can be aggressive. And so what you did in that moment was like stand up and like not bare your teeth, not in an aggressive way, but you sort of like stood shoulder to shoulder with me, and you were like, I'm also not going to let you push me around in the same way you don't want to be pushed around. Like, I'm not going to let you push me around. Like, that's not how this is going to work. And if that's how this is going to work, this isn't going to work either. And so at you like coming up against me here, I was like, oh, I don't know. Not that I didn't, like I was just was like, it's too hard. Why are we doing this sort of stuff? So we have businesses to run. It's too stressful. Why are we trying? And you were like, Grace, we were both in our 30s. We were both single at that time. Like, we want to be in partnerships of all types with people who are like us, who are ambitious, who are driven, who have the ability to take control, who are like really move things forward, who are outspoken. it behooves us to learn how to do this really well if we haven't yet, and we haven't yet,
Mm-hmm.
clearly. So why not use this as a blueprint for all the other types of relationships with people like each other that we want?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What an opportunity.
What an opportunity to be like God.
Yes.
That's our inside joke. I don't want to hear anyone's opinion on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like when you get to deal with conflict with people you love and respect, it is such a blessing because then you don't have to deal with it with somebody that you hate, right? Like the more you can learn to move through tough shit, the less the tough shit needs to come up because the tough shit is just coming up because that's something you need to overcome. The next time it comes up, it won't even be triggering anymore because it won't even be a thing anymore. So that's what they say. Like, if you don't deal with it, it'll keep coming up around your life. Like, take the easy opportunities to deal with it with the people that you'd like to work through it with, because it is always a gift when things come up so that you can deal with it. And it's so interesting because all of that kind of energy between us has like completely dissipated, and we ended up doing that project together, and it's been so much fun. Like
That's
we had like this whole community of people now. We realize like it's no big deal. We're learning from each other. We're learning from them. We're gonna like keep on doing it for a long time. And it's not like anything we thought it would be when we like first scoped it out. Um, and that's totally okay. And it's enriching our lives in a way that's totally different than the initial conception of the project. So like so many lessons there in terms of just like letting go of the reins a little bit and like saying yes to the opportunities that come and like seeing how they unfold and how that brings more community into your life. And then also just like taking the opportunities to deal with the hard things with the people that are easy to deal with it with instead of just like pushing it off or jumping ship or like, you know, pulling the plug.
or Karpman's drama triangle, which Lindsay taught me about, which is this idea where there's like a victim and a persecutor and a rescuer. And we see this on the internet all the time. But this happens with our phones. Like I've been doing this since I'm 25 probably. If I'm having an issue with a friend and I can't work it out with them, I go to another friend and
Mm-hmm.
be like, you know, what happened? And I don't do that anymore because I just like I haven't had time or space for that type of friendship drama with my business.
Mm-hmm.
But probably a lesser evolved version of me would have taken all the stuff that we had and tried to like tell someone else about it and get some reprieve from my bad feelings.
Totally. Yeah. And like I've done that too. And that's something I've worked a lot about. Like, if you can not gossip about it with the whole court and instead go direct to the problem, like, one, you're not wasting everybody else's time. Like, you're not wasting your time and energy. You're getting the answers you need quicker. Like, there is no need to opinion shop on things like this because you're not just going to come in with like a cold point of view. Like, resolution is collaborative. And so, like, you might not even have heard what they were trying to say. And maybe it's because you were half listening or because your pants were too tight or you were having a bad day, or
Yeah.
maybe they just said it in a weird way and like you don't perceive the words they say the way that they perceive the words they say. Like, there's just so many reasons that things could land in a bad way or activate you. So you do really need to extend the opportunity to the person first to be like, hey, this is how I heard that and this is how it made me feel. Like, what did you mean? And if they're like, oh yeah, I actually did mean that you're a dumb bitch, then like, of course, like go tell the whole court and get mad about it. But for the most part, that is not what anybody was trying to say. And if you come at the other person with the benefit of the doubt, like even if you're in your mind, you're like at least come with the benefit of the doubt and give them the opportunity to say what they wanted to say. See what happens. Like, stop opinion shopping and going to the whole court first. And it's also so selfish. Like, nobody else wants to waste their time thinking about your shit.
No one cares. I'm still constantly trying to show people comments that piss me off. And no, I'll tell you from myself, no one cares. No one cares. Um, I think that's like a really interesting point for us to close on. The thing I want to pull out there is we both having this evolved, like beautiful, successful relationship between us. We both have people in our lives in a variety of ways who we can't have this with. So this is not to say that once you get to a certain point, you learn these skills, you get to have this with everyone. No, no, no. You need to find someone that meets you where you are
Mm-hmm.
with this. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I had an issue with a friend over the weekend where like I said something totally careless and they were really mad at me and they ignored me for like 48 hours and then I was like so upset and I was like, "Please talk to me. Like I didn't mean to say that and I don't even know how it landed with you." And they refused to talk to me and then I was pissed off because they were ignoring me like and was I in the wrong and blah 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 and there's just so much to deal with when it comes to this kind of stuff. So to do it in the safe containers, when you could do it in the safe containers, and also to like let yourself off the hook if you can't get to resolution with somebody, or if it really is time to end a toxic relationship, or if a chapter has come to a close, like you sort of have to be able to look at it from all angles and have the discernment, as you say, to know when the right place is to implement the right strategy to work through the conflict.
Yeah. And I would say it's almost like 2% of the time it's the dramatic and
Yeah.
it's the toxic thing. Almost every other time, I get a really nice note from someone who I had just drifted apart with a couple years ago, and she was like, she was inviting me to something. It was basically like, I know we drifted apart, and you know what? I'm not going to take it personally. Life goes on, and whatever, whatever. Like it was such a nice note. And I think it would have been so easy for a different person to be like, send a note being like, you know what? I haven't gotten over this because I feel like you betrayed me in this way. So I think it's the more we can let ourselves just let a lot of that stuff be at the
Hmm.
more neutral place that it is without our, emotional overrides,
Yeah.
the better. Okay.
Yeah.
We're at 10101. Do you have, okay, top two advice for people who want to make more money
Hmm.
and want to have better working relationships?
Okay, for people who want to make more money, I think they need to first figure out what marketable skills they have to offer and who they can
Do
offer
you
them.
have anything that they could use to figure
I
that
do.
out?
Oh my gosh. So I have this workshop called How to Go Freelance, and I have a whole section called Turning Your Skills into Services, and then a whole section on how to think about getting clients and how to get clients. So you can check that workshop out. And then I also have a free scope of work template where once you know what your services are, then you can use this template to plug them in. Like it's not going to really help you figure out what your services are. That's thought work that you're going to have to do. The course can help guide you. But then once you create like sort of a general scope of work, or I also have a rate sheet template where it's kind of like a menu of your services. I would start with those resources to figure out what you do, how much it costs, who you can offer it to. And it will just also give you the sense of like, my doors are open, right? Like now that I have services established, I can offer them. And then number one rule is start telling people that you have services. Like tell your mom, tell your friends, put it on your LinkedIn, like start volunteering yourself as a resource, like email people and ask if you can do it for them. Nobody's going to hire you if they don't know what they do or know what you do. And nobody can hire you if you don't know what you do.
I actually disagree with you on your scope of work. I think you can definitely use it as a thought piece. I would take, okay, the lazy man's way out. I would
Yeah.
take your job description,
Yeah.
plug it into ChatGPT,
Okay.
plug
Love.
in Grace's scope of work, and
Uh-huh.
ask it to fill out a couple different options for you based on like without even putting any of your own thought work in.
Yeah.
Start lazy
Yeah.
and see what
Love
happens.
that. And I would also say, like, I usually use that scope of work and customize it client to client.
Yeah.
So you can make a more general one, but your scope will change depending on who you're going to work with. And you don't want to have universal, like, set in stone, this is what I do. The way that I made the most money is by customizing all of my services based on what I know that the client needs. So, like, really like building relationships, listening to what people need, and then customizing your offerings to meet those needs, and not being afraid to say yes, figure it out later within reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And then better work relationships.
Better work relationships. I would say the more you work on yourself, the better all of your relationships get. A lot of things that can get in the way of bad or of good work relationships are things like being a people pleaser. Being a people pleaser, like breeds resentment. Like after a while, you're just going to be like fed up with the person you've been people pleasing. And it's not even their fault because you let them walk all over you. That was like a big issue that happened for me for a while where I would like blame everyone I was working with or taking advantage of me. Like I'm giving more than they are. They're making me feel small. And like all the while, like I'm the one doing the work, continuing on, saying yes to the lower rate, like doing what they want me to do. And all I had to do was like stop and step up. And sometimes that means quitting the job or the client relationship and getting a new one where you can start fresh. Other times there's an opportunity to rearrange the role. Either way, it doesn't have to happen on bad terms. So identifying like what your unique thing is, right? If you're somebody that is like angry and like full of like feeling like you need to justify your existence or your role or defend your viewpoint, like that's just like an expression of low self-worth, like that's just you feeling like you don't belong in the room, or maybe you're not good enough, and so you're going to defend it so hard because you want people to see. And like, what does that require? Some reparenting of your sweet inner child, and like really seeing yourself first and seeing your own expertise, your own goodness, all that you have to give. And so once you identify kind of like your own, trigger points, your own things that you need to work through, and you work through them, you're just naturally going to show up better in your work relationship. So that's what I would say.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Anything else we want the people to know?
Oh my gosh. Well, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on TikTok at ask_Grace. And howtogofreelance.com if you want to find my workshop or book a one-on-one session.
Thank you so much.